In the village of Umuoma, a small, quiet settlement surrounded by thick forests and rolling hills, there lived a woman who was both feared and admired. Her name was Eringa. She was not like other women in the village. She stood head and shoulders above most men, towering at nearly 7 feet tall. Her beauty was striking, with smooth dark skin that glistened in the sun, eyes sharp as an eagle's, and hair that flowed like the black rivers of the gods. Yet, it wasn't her beauty that made her famous. It was her strength, both of body and spirit. Eringa's husband, Chaik, was a gentle, soft-spoken man. He adored his wife, though many men mocked him for being married to someone so powerful. While most men saw their wives as helpers and companions, Chaik saw Eringa as his equal, if not his protector. Unlike other marriages in Umuoma, theirs was one of deep respect and partnership. Chaik loved Eringa's fierce spirit, and in turn, she cherished his calm and supportive nature. But not everyone in the village felt the same. Whispers about Eringa spread through Umuoma like wildfire. The men, in particular, were unsettled by her strength. She had once beaten a group of 6 men who had harassed a young girl by the market square. She fought them with the speed and skill of a warrior, leaving them bruised and humiliated. The men of the village were outraged, their pride wounded. How could a woman beat them? A woman, no less, who looked more like a goddess than a fighter. The women, on the other hand, admired her, though secretly. Many envied her confidence, her freedom to walk through the village without fear of anyone. But they, too, were cautious around her. Eringa did not tolerate disrespect from anyone, man or woman. She had once humiliated a group of older women who had spoken ill of her behind her back. They thought she wouldn't hear, but Eringa always knew. She confronted them, her towering figure casting shadows over their cowering forms, and made it clear that she would not be disrespected. As time passed, the men began to fear Eringa more than admire her. Their fear turned into anger, and anger turned into plans. The village council, made up entirely of men, began to discuss ways to subdue Eringa, to put her in her place. They whispered of a challenge, a test of her strength that would either prove her worth or lead to her downfall. Chaik, hearing of these plans, warned his wife. Eringa laughed when he told her. "Let them come," she said with a smile. "I will teach them the meaning of true strength." One hot afternoon, as the village went about its usual routines, a group of strangers appeared on the outskirts of Umuoma. They were not from the neighboring villages, nor did anyone recognize their faces. There were about 15 of them, tall, muscular men with hardened faces and dangerous eyes. Word quickly spread that they were invaders, mercenaries hired by some powerful men to deal with Eringa. The entire village was thrown into panic. The men of Umuoma, who had never seen such fighters before, hid in their homes, afraid of what was coming. Chaik, too, was worried for his wife, but he knew Eringa was no ordinary woman. The invaders marched into the village square, their leader, a brute of a man named Ikena, demanding to see Eringa. He boasted that he would end her reign of terror once and for all, calling her a mere woman with too much pride. The village gathered in fear, watching from the shadows as the tension grew thick in the air. Eringa emerged from her hut, standing tall and fearless. She walked towards the invaders, her footsteps steady and sure. She wore a simple wrapper tied around her waist and a leather band across her chest. Her face was calm, her eyes fierce. Ikena laughed when he saw her. "Is this the woman who has brought fear to Umuoma? This will be easy." Eringa smiled. "You speak too much for a man who doesn't know what's coming." Without another word, Ikena lunged at her, thinking his size would overwhelm her. But Eringa moved like the wind. She sidestepped his attack with ease, grabbing his arm and twisting it behind his back before he could react. The sound of his bones snapping echoed through the village. Ikena screamed in pain, but Eringa did not release him. Instead, she threw him to the ground as if he weighed nothing. The other invaders rushed at her, but Eringa was ready. She fought them with skill and precision, her movements fluid like water. She disarmed them, broke their bones, and sent them crashing into the dirt. The men of Umuoma watched in disbelief, their mouths agape as Eringa took down one invader after another. Her strength was not just physical, there was something spiritual about her power, something otherworldly. As the last invader fell to the ground, defeated, the village was silent. Eringa stood tall, her chest heaving from the effort, but her face remained calm. She turned to the villagers, her voice ringing out clearly. "Let this be a lesson to all," she said. "Strength is not found in brute force or violence. True strength comes from within, from knowing who you are and standing for what is right." The invaders limped away, never to return. The men who had hired them were ashamed, their plan to subdue Eringa utterly destroyed. From that day forward, the villagers treated Eringa with a mixture of fear and respect. She had proven herself not only as the strongest person in Umuoma but as someone who would fight for. Years passed, and Eringa's legend grew. She became a figure of awe, not only in Umuoma but in the neighboring villages as well. People spoke of her with reverence, calling her the warrior queen of their land. Even the elders, who had once tried to diminish her, now sought her advice on matters of importance. She had become not just a fighter but a leader, a protector of her people. But Eringa knew that her journey was not yet complete. As strong as she was, she had always felt a pull, a spiritual calling that she could not ignore. One night, as she sat with Chaik under the stars, she spoke of her destiny. "My love," she said softly, "I feel that my time here is nearing its end. There is something greater waiting for me, a journey that I must take alone." Chaik, though saddened by her words, nodded in understanding. "I have always known that you are destined for more than this village. But know that I will love you no matter where you go." A week later, Eringa gathered the villagers and said her farewells. She did not explain where she was going, only that it was a journey she must take to fulfill her destiny. With a final embrace from Chaik, she set off into the forest, disappearing into the misty hills beyond. The villagers spoke of Eringa for generations, remembering her as the woman who fought for them, the woman who stood tall and fearless in the face of danger. Her story became legend, passed down through songs and tales, her name forever etched in the hearts of her people. And though Eringa was never seen again, it was said that on quiet nights, when the moon was full and the wind whispered through the trees, one could still hear her footsteps, strong, steady, and full of strength. Eringa lay motionless on the battlefield, the warmth of her blood seeping into the earth beneath her. Chaik knelt beside her, cradling her head in his hands, praying desperately for her to wake. The villagers, now without their fierce warrior, felt a deep sense of loss wash over them. They had been inspired by her strength, but now they were faced with the reality of their reliance on her. Days passed, and the villagers began to mourn. They built a shrine in Eringa's honor, placing flowers and offerings around it. But Achik couldn't accept that his wife was gone. He refused to let her spirit fade into the shadows of memory. He sought the help of Neoma, the village's wise woman, who was known for her knowledge of the spirit world. "Neoma," he pleaded, tears streaming down his face. "Please help me bring Eringa back. She is the heart of our village, and I cannot live without her." Neoma looked at him with understanding, her eyes filled with sorrow. "The path to the spirit world is fraught with dangers, Chaik. You must be willing to pay a price to bring her back. It is not a simple task." "What must I do?" Obina asked, determination burning in his heart. "You must face the spirits and prove your love. Only then can you hope to bring her back," Neoma warned. That night, under the light of the full moon, Chaik ventured into the forest, guided by Neoma's words. He reached a sacred grove where the spirits were said to dwell. There, he called out to Eringa, his voice echoing through the night. "Eringa, my love." If you can hear me, please return. I will fight for you, for our village. I will face the spirits, whatever the cost. The winds began to swirl, and a soft light emerged from the trees. A figure appeared, ethereal and shimmering. It was Eringa, but she looked different. Her beauty was even more radiant, and her presence filled the grove with a warm glow. "Chike," she spoke softly, her voice like a melody. "You came for me?" "Yes, my love," he replied, falling to his knees. "I cannot live without you. Please come back." "You must be prepared to pay the price," she warned, her gaze piercing through him. "To bring me back means you must sacrifice something of great value." Chike's heart raced. "What must I give?" "Your strength," Eringa said, her eyes filled with sadness. "You must give up your strength to save me." In that moment, Chike understood the weight of her words. He had always been known for his gentle spirit, but he had a strength that came from his love for Eringa. Without hesitation, he nodded. "I will do it. I will sacrifice my strength for you." With a wave of her hand, the spirit surrounded Chike and he felt his energy being drawn from him. Pain shot through his body, but he held on to the image of Eringa, determined to see her again. As the last of his strength faded, he collapsed to the ground. When he awoke, he was back in the village, lying near the shrine they had built for Eringa. He could hardly move, his body weak, but as he looked up, there she was, Eringa, standing tall and radiant, just as he remembered her. The villagers gasped, their disbelief turning to joy. Eringa knelt beside him, tears in her eyes. "You came for me, and you paid the price. Thank you, Chike, my love, my king. You have done what no other man can do. Thank you for your love." The villagers celebrated Eringa's return, but they also realized the true price they had paid. They had learned a valuable lesson about strength, dependence, and the sacrifices made in love. From that day forward, they vowed to support one another, to share the burden of strength, and to cherish their bonds as a community.